Imagine being thousands of feet above the Pacific Ocean when suddenly, your airplane engine explodes. Flames roar, metal shreds, and panic fills the cabin. This is the true story of United Airlines Flight 1175, a flight that turned into a terrifying battle for survival. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon, because stories like this will shake your soul and you don't want to miss the next one. On February 13, 2018, United Airlines Flight 1175 was scheduled as a routine trip from San Francisco International Airport to Honolulu, Hawaii. It was supposed to be a standard 5-hour journey across the Pacific Ocean, carrying 373 people on board, including passengers and crew. No one knew that within hours, this seemingly ordinary flight would turn into one of the most frightening aviation emergencies in modern history. The Boeing 777-200 aircraft, a trusted workhorse of long-haul travel, lifted off from San Francisco without incident. Families were excited for vacations, honeymooners dreamed of Hawaiian beaches, and business travelers were making notes for upcoming meetings. For the pilots in the cockpit, Captain Christopher Behnam and First Officer Christopher Williams, this was just another transoceanic leg, a job they had done countless times before. The crew prepared the cabin, meals were served, and passengers settled into movies and books. Everything was normal. 3 hours into the flight, cruising at 36,000 feet over the Pacific Ocean, the calm was shattered. Without warning, a loud explosion echoed across the right side of the aircraft. Passengers on the right rows jumped as the sound shook the cabin. The plane jolted violently, shuddering in a way that made hearts sink instantly. Outside the windows, something terrifying unfolded. The right engine had exploded. Chunks of the engine cowling, the protective covering around the engine, tore off violently. Metal fragments peeled away, exposing the inner mechanics. The spinning turbine fan blade had failed catastrophically, tearing apart in midair. The once powerful engine now rattled like a broken machine. Passengers gasped in horror as they looked out to see jagged metal, torn wires, and vibrations that made the entire wing tremble. Inside the cabin, the sound was deafening. The once smooth hum of the engines was replaced by a terrifying roar. The fuselage shook as if caught in an endless storm. Mothers clutched their children. Some passengers screamed while others sat frozen, gripping their armrests with white knuckles. Panic spread like wildfire. In the cockpit, alarms blared. Warning lights lit up across the panels. The pilots instantly recognized the severity. Engine number 2, the starboard engine, had suffered a catastrophic failure. Captain Behnam, a seasoned pilot with decades of experience, quickly took command. His voice was calm, steady, his training kicking in as adrenaline surged through his veins. "We've lost an engine," he confirmed to his co-pilot. But losing an engine mid-flight was only part of the problem. The engine failure had also caused severe vibrations across the aircraft. The plane shook violently, making it extremely difficult to control. With only one functioning engine, they were hundreds of miles away from land, stranded over open ocean. Meanwhile, flight attendants rushed through the cabin, their professional calm masking the fear in their hearts. They reassured passengers, guiding them to fasten seatbelts tightly and remain calm. Oxygen masks hadn't deployed, but the tension in the air made it difficult to breathe. Passengers near the right wing watched in disbelief as the damaged engine vibrated and rattled dangerously. Some took out their phones to record, documenting the disaster unfolding outside their windows. Videos later went viral, showing how terrifyingly exposed the engine had become, with its protective shell ripped away, leaving a raw, rattling mechanical heart exposed to the sky. In the cockpit, the pilots knew they had a critical decision to make. They were still over 200 miles from Honolulu, the nearest airport capable of handling a wide-body emergency landing. The choice was clear: they had to get the crippled aircraft and everyone on board safely to Honolulu. But every minute that passed, the shaking grew worse. The wing vibrated, and there were fears that the damage could compromise the entire aircraft structure. Captain Behnam declared an emergency with Honolulu Air Traffic Control. His voice, though calm, carried urgency. "United 1175 Heavy, Mayday. We've lost the right engine. We need immediate vectors to Honolulu." The controllers sprang into action, clearing all other aircraft from the path and preparing Honolulu International for an emergency landing. Fire crews and ambulances lined up along the runway, ready for the worst. Back inside the cabin, passengers whispered prayers. A father kissed his children's foreheads. A young woman clutched her fiancé's hand tightly, tears streaming down her face. One passenger later recalled, "You could see the fear in everyone's eyes. We didn't know if we were going to make it." For the next 40 minutes, the crippled Boeing 777 limped toward Hawaii. The plane's shuddering vibrations continued, rattling trays and shaking overhead bins. The pilots fought the controls with constant adjustments, keeping the aircraft steady despite the violent tremors. Every second felt like an eternity for those on board. At last, the coastline of Oahu came into sight. The turquoise waters of Hawaii had never looked so beautiful. The pilots lined up with the runway, guiding the massive aircraft down with one working engine and a wing that vibrated with every adjustment. Passengers gripped their seats as the wheels screeched onto the tarmac. With a loud rumble, United 1175 touched down safely at Honolulu International Airport. Relief washed over the cabin like a wave. Tears flowed freely, and applause erupted spontaneously. People hugged strangers. Mothers wept as they held their children close. For many, it felt like being given a second chance at life. On the ground, emergency crews swarmed the plane, assessing the damage. The right engine looked gutted, its protective casing ripped apart like paper. Aviation experts were stunned by the severity of the damage, and even more amazed that the crew had managed to land safely. Investigations later revealed the cause of the failure. One of the engine's fan blades had cracked due to metal fatigue, an invisible weakness that grew over time until it catastrophically failed mid-flight. The force of the failure was so powerful it ripped off parts of the engine's cowling and shook the aircraft violently. The story of United Airlines Flight 1175 quickly spread worldwide. Passengers, videos went viral, showing the terrifying image of a mangled engine rattling in midair. Aviation experts praised the pilots for their skill and composure, crediting them with saving hundreds of lives. The FAA and United Airlines immediately ordered inspections of similar engines to prevent future tragedies. But beyond the technical explanations, what lingered was the human experience. Those who lived through Flight 1175 would never forget the feeling of helplessness, the prayers whispered, the tears shed, and the overwhelming relief of touching solid ground again. One passenger said later, "You think about your life in those moments. Every choice, every person you love, it all flashes before you. And when you survive, you realize just how fragile everything is, and how precious it is too." For Captain Behnam and First Officer Williams, the flight became one of the defining moments of their careers. They had faced a nightmare scenario, a catastrophic engine failure over open ocean, and brought everyone home alive. Their names became symbols of calm heroism in aviation. United Airlines Flight 1175 wasn't just a story about an engine failure. It was a story about fear, resilience, professionalism, and survival. It was a reminder that even in the most terrifying circumstances, human skill and courage can overcome the odds. That day, 373 souls were carried safely to the ground. And for each of them, Hawaii didn't just mean paradise, it meant life. If this story moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs a reminder of hope, strength, and courage. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe, smash that like button, and join our community for more true stories that will touch your heart and keep you on the edge of your seat. Until next time, stay strong, stay inspired, and never take a single day for granted.